right, we are back for another episode of Weightlifting Academy, the only show dedicated to putting 10,000 new lifters on the platform in 2012. I am Nick Horton.
Michael Hartman.
And this is kind of exciting one. I just got back from the 2012 combination Arnold Classic, National Weightlifting Championships, and Olympic Trials, at least for the women. I was there for 5 days and 4 nights. My lifter Brandon was competing in the 62 class, and man, it was a trip. And you've been there in the past. You were there, what, 3-4 years ago?
The early days, 2003, 2004.
Oh, okay. So that's
almost 10 years. It's only gotten bigger since then.
And it was huge.
This episode's almost live, really, because you got off the plane and now we're recording it, and it'll be up on the site tomorrow.
Yeah, this is the closest thing we've ever had to live. So, yeah, this is the closest thing to a live show we've ever had because we are recording it the day before it comes out. Normally, we're like almost a week in advance, to give myself some time to edit and everything. But we had no opportunity to do that, to record it, and we thought it'd be better to have, the ability to talk it out, what had gone on over the course of the weekend and all that kind of stuff.
Get you off the plane, get your impressions while they're still fresh in your head. And
right, before I forget it all, because I got Alzheimer's, Yeah, man, it was a really good experience. It was kind of a trip. So the thing that Brandon and I noticed right away when we walked into the Arnold Expo was that basically it was like an episode of the Jersey Shore. So everybody was covered in bronzer, had a faux hawk, and had those like shirts with the dragons on the shoulder, and that was just basically everyone. And of course the girls were basically naked, just also everyone is a neon color. I don't know what the deal was with that, but everybody had the color, some kind of freaky neon color, and that was pretty hilarious. But thankfully, we didn't have to spend much time actually hanging out with those guys. We were able to spend most of our time in the weightlifting area, and that was actually pretty darn packed. I mean, kind of used to the idea of, otherwise what you would consider to be big national meets not really being very big. They're sort of like glorified local meets. They have more people, but not that many more people.
Same atmosphere and same kind of scene.
Same basic scene, yeah. That was definitely not true here. I mean, this was a heck of a show. I mean, standing room only for a lot of the weight classes.
Yep.
It was just packed, and that was awesome. I really want to give a shout out to guys like Dan Bell, Mark Canella, and Canella, and everybody. There's so many people that were really involved in getting that thing going. Rachel Crass was there.
They do just a fantastic job.
Holy heck, man! Yeah, the amount of work that they had to go through to make something like that happen.
Yep.
I just can't even fathom. I mean, it's pretty awesome what they did. But it was a great experience for me, for sure. But yeah, it was exciting, man. I mean, we had to get up awfully early for Brandon for West Coast time. I'm on West Coast time, so we were over there on the East Coast, and so he was scheduled to lift. I think he was scheduled to lift at 9.
Yeah.
But it had a 7 o'clock weigh-in, which for us would be 4 in the morning, so we'd have to get up at 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
The 105s, that actually is what happened for them. So, Donnie Schenkel and them, they really were weighing in at 4 in the morning West Coast time, and he's from the West Coast too. So, we lucked out though. They shifted the 62s later, so we didn't lift until 10:45. So the weigh-in was like 8:45. That's more doable, not as bad, but still, it was definitely it made for very long days.
Sure. No, it's a good problem to have. It's a growing pains type problem where they have to reshuffle stuff because they have more people in the weight class than they ever expected, and growing pains are good pains sometimes. It's not people complain. It's not like the organizers of every national weightlifting meet are usually on top of stuff, and especially the Arnold, where it's all eyes are on Columbus every year at this time.
Totally,
they
man.
know what they're doing, right? So they they're not going to purposely shuffle around the schedules unless they absolutely have to.
Right. I think there's just a flood of people who switched into like other weight classes. Yeah.
In a weight class, not too many, but you get more than you ever expected. That's a good problem to have, and
oh yeah,
growing pains.
Yeah, it was cool to see how many people were in a number of these weight classes. I mean, you know, for instance, the 62s had 13 lifters.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to have 13 people in your weight class at nationals is a great thing. You know, rather than say 3. Right.
Oh, and it wasn't that long ago. There was 3, 62. I mentioned a couple episodes ago. One year, maybe like 2007, there were no men in 56 kilos at nationals.
Wow.
No one qualified or entered that weight class.
Wow.
So
the entire weight class just devoid of
grown
people.
exponentially since then. And no, I really see especially in the lighter weight classes. And I've always told people who sometimes rightfully so say, well, we lose our best athletes to football. We're not losing 56 and 62 and 69 to football, you know?
Right. When was the last time you saw a guy who's 135 pounds playing football?
The last time will be the first time. And
yeah.
I mean, outside of the high school level, but like we can do really well internationally in those weight classes.
Yeah.
If we find and recruit and coach up those kids, and I think we're doing a good job of that. We collectively, you personally with Brandon, but we collectively as an organization, as a country, are doing much better things in those weight classes.
Yeah, I really agree. I think that there has always been at least a certain strand of people in the weightlifting community who just do a lot of complaining about the major male sports stealing our talent. And that is an awfully silly thing, considering that only a few weight classes on the male side could even have potential in those sports. I mean, really, if you're under an 85, you have no shot at almost any major big money sport. Team sport, yeah. Maybe you could be a sprinter or something, but
Sure, but not team sports, baseball, football.
Yeah, you're out. I mean, that's ridiculous. And even the 85s are a little small. I mean, there's a few positions here and there. But usually we're really honestly talking about 94s, 105s, and supers.
Yep.
That's 3 weight classes. That's it. And then there's the entirety of the women.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, women don't have any major sports that they could. I mean, it's a very rare female sport that's going to pay you as an adult.
Yeah.
That's extreme.
Basketball sometimes, women's
maybe
soccer.
Maybe a tennis. Yeah.
They're financially not in a much better place than we are, really.
Right. I mean, that's just not really a big option. So to me, it seems like an awfully silly thing to whine about. When what we could do instead is say, well, let's go then for lighter weight class males, and then of course women, female lifters. And it's interesting. The Olympic trials this time were exclusively for females. We only have right now 2 guaranteed slots for women, and right now at least no guaranteed slots for men at all. I mean, we'll get one.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. I mean, it's pretty likely we will,
yep.
But it's not guaranteed. And we do have the 2 guaranteed slots for women, and that to me does actually show a bit that some of that's going in the right direction. I mean, there were a lot of women at this meet. I mean, there were a ton.
Yeah.
I think the 63s had 15 or 16 total people.
Yeah.
I mean, whoa, that's huge.
That's just very, like I said, it's a great problem to have when you have to shuffle around that many people.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. And they're good to watch. So I talked to Tommy Kono for a little bit there, which was really cool. I never met him in person, so this was really, obviously a cool thing. But I sat there, we were watching the 69s or maybe the 70s, 75, something like that, females. And he turned to me and he said, I like watching the women better. He said, most of them just have better technique. He said the guys just like to muscle stuff around. But the girls, they've been taught since they were young that they're not strong. So they work hard at being technical.
They don't have a lot of reserve strength where like most guys, some guys, if something's out of place by an inch or two, you can kind of muscle it back in and make it look real ugly.
Right, especially on the clean.
Don't have that extra reserve strength, so everything has to be very precise, very Position, tempo, everything has to be right on.
Yeah, I really agreed with, especially, obviously the top lifters in every weight class, male or female, they're usually fairly technical.
Sure.
They're usually pretty darn good. I mean, the two Barnes brothers, ridiculously technical.
Yeah.
Great lifters. And there's lots of examples on the male side of that. But I think when you get to the mid-tier level, people in like the number, 4th place down to maybe 10th place, that group, that's where I think the women in that group versus the men in that group, I think almost universally had better technique.
Yeah,
which is interesting. I think that's kind of an interesting sort of observation. I don't know if that just means that coaches need to spend a little more time sort of dealing with the fact that males maybe are too prone to muscling around weight, and so they need to be. I don't know how to deal with that. Obviously, it's an interesting thing to have to deal with. John Bros, his guys are all guys. He only has males, right? As of right now, but his lifter Josh Gilbert's actually quite a technical lifter. He's a pretty darn good lifter. He's ridiculously flexible. Obviously, male lifters can be top notch technically, and that's certainly not a question. But I do sort of wonder if maybe there's a lesson there. If there is a natural tendency, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But let's just say there's a natural tendency that women will just focus in more on technique stuff, the stuff that obviously you have to have down if you're going to be an elite lifter, not just a sort of a lifter who has fun at the local level. And males don't have that. If there are any implications for coaches on how do you bring the males up in that regard. Because if the women, maybe you're just thinking, well, the main thing I have to do is just get them really, really strong. That's the hard part, not the technique part. Maybe men are the opposite. Getting them strong is kind of the easier part.
Sure.
And maybe getting them technical is the hard part.
Males, we definitely have the hardware there with testosterone and lean body mass and things like that. Maybe completely outside of coaching and outside of weightlifting, but I think in general, women are a lot more patient than males.
Yeah.
You have to be a lesson in sociology, but
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Technique it requires patience. It's not something that changes in one workout. It's not something that always changes in a week of workouts. It may take time to perfect technique. And I think women may have a better appreciation for patience and kind of seeing the bigger picture where, again, kind of speaking in generalities, guys are just more concerned with putting 2 extra kilos on the bar, even if it means doing so with worse technique, where I think females may see the bigger picture and kind of see the long-term benefit to holding back a little bit on the weight and just taking your time to develop.
Yeah, there definitely may be something to that. It was interesting. I have to say, I really enjoyed watching the female lifters. I watched pretty much all of them. We did not see most of the 69s, but we saw pretty much everybody else. And it was pretty impressive lifting going on all around. I mean, I was pretty stoked by it.
No, I watched obviously the webcast. I watched maybe 75, about the same, probably 75% of all the female weight classes, and especially on Sunday toward the end, just the actual trials.
Oh, yeah.
I watched all of that, and I watched probably pretty much all of it, either live or replay going back, just so I'd be able to have an intelligent discussion with you today about the lifting. There's some of my friends and some of the guys that I work with or coach with now are actually lifting. So I kind of set aside time to watch those guys lift live, and then everybody else I kind of backtracked and watched some of the recorded sessions. But
sure,
overall, I think a good quality level of lifting, and even if the top numbers haven't changed much in the last 4 years, between the guys that went in 08 to the guys going now,
like Chad Vaughn and those guys.
Yeah, the top 3 in 08 were Kendrick, Chad, and Casey, and now it's Kendrick, Donnie, and Chad. So Casey kind of stepped down and Donnie stepped up, but the top 3, roughly the same weights. But overall, I think the mean or the median of each weight class has really improved. Where the second tier is much better than they were 4 years ago or 8 years ago. So the guys coming in 5th and 6th in weight classes are much better than the guys coming in 5th and 6th in weight classes 4 years ago. So I see a lot of real progress being made and a lot of upward movement for weightlifting in this country.
That's that's a very good sign if the people coming up the pipeline are better than the people coming up the pipeline in the past.
Yeah.
Obviously, that means the turnover at the top is going to be better, and you're going to have more people to do it. I mean, it's not a good sign if, in an 8-year period, it's the exact same names at the top. And I think in, say, another 4 years, another 8 years, there will be, some of the names that are around right now that are in that sort of mid to top tier will still be around. I think Pat Mendez will still be around, et cetera. But there will be a lot of people who knows what their names are. But I think that if it is, I think there is some truth to that the pipeline's getting better.
Yeah.
Something's going right already, and so that's a real good sign that something is increasing the number of good lifters coming in at this level. And this is the national level, so that's about as big as it gets in America.
Yeah, it's all different aspects. Whether it's places to train the lifts, coaches who are able to coach the lifts, individual lifters in their garage who can now go online and buy weightlifting shoes and bumpers where, 4 or 5 years ago, it was like there was one manufacturer in this country, well, not even a manufacturer in this country. There was only one, Eleiko was the only name in barbell, and York put out some equipment that, it was good equipment, but it wasn't as good as Eleiko. But now there's, 4, 5, 6 different brands that you can buy. Barbell, Eleiko's still there, obviously, but there's lots of good equipment out there. Pendlay and even companies like Rogue that don't make. They make Olympic weightlifting equipment, but again, it's kind of designed for people training in their garages or people training out of CrossFit gyms. And really here, 8 years ago. So
it's fantastic.
All that is kind of adding in, and hopefully, it's really going to improve the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it will. I got to tell you, because Brandon's a 62, I was spending a lot of time in the warm-up room, with all the 62s, and got a chance to sit down and talk to some of them, and some of the guys who nobody's ever heard of because they're brand new lifters. What was interesting is not like all these guys are coming out of, say, 2 or 3 clubs.
Yeah.
Almost every one of them was from a different club.
Yeah, that's cool.
You got 13 guys basically coming in, every one of them from a different club. That's really good news. That means it's not just that there are a couple of teams that are just producing all the lifters.
Yeah.
It's that there are, in fact, lots of teams out there now that didn't even exist numbers of years ago. I mean, my team's one of them.
Sure.
We didn't exist 5 years ago in any serious capacity. That is really cool because, of course, the more just individual teams you have out there, the more likely you're going to have a subset of them go do even more stuff, a subset of them do even more stuff, and you got to have that large base at the bottom of just lots and lots of teams, as many as you can possibly handle. That's a great thing. I'm pretty excited by that.
Another along those same lines, something that didn't exist 10, 12 years ago is with the advent of all these different clubs and all these different gyms, there's going to be like coaching roles for lifters after they get out of the sport. And
sure.
Going back to you look at like the Olympic team from like 92 and 96. Some of those guys went into coaching, but it was strength and conditioning team coaching.
Sure.
There weren't many Olympic weight. The only one that kind of a couple guys spring to mind. Like Paul Flesher was an alternate on the '92 Olympic team, and then got into strength and conditioning, and then eventually kind of came back into Olympic weightlifting as the national resident coach. But as all these different clubs kind of pull up, that you don't have to necessarily go into work in like a high school or a college environment, you can go strictly from competing Olympic weightlifting to coaching Olympic weightlifting.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a better influx of coaches with national level experience because
That's a great
all these
thing.
clubs popping up and just more opportunities. So it's like a big wave we're kind of riding. I think we haven't reached the top yet. It's still a little bit off, but we're getting there, and that's a good thing. Very good thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that the having more people being able to just be Olympic lifting coaches and not be basically another kind of coach is pretty huge. It was funny. I talked to a lot of coaches and stuff there. Some of whom who were let's say they're in the 1 or 2 generations above me.
Sure.
When we met and we talked, and they said, "Okay, so you run a club in Portland. Are you like a CrossFit club?" And no, I'm not a CrossFit club. Do you do like sports kind of training? I said, not really. Mostly, we're just an Olympic lifting club. I mean, that's what we are. It was kind of fascinating to them that it's even possible to run a club like mine, which is a dedicated Olympic weightlifting club. That's what we do. People don't come in and do CrossFit in my club. They might be a CrossFitter, but they're going to do Olympic lifting in my club.
CrossFit athletes come in to learn and perfect the lift, and we talked about it on the very first episode, and I think it kind of it proved us correct in that I know you follow CrossFit kind of from the outside like me, and the second workout of the CrossFit games, the kind of the open workout, was snatches, and it was just minutes of snatches, which is a little bit different than Olympic weightlifting. But who better to learn snatch technique than from Olympic weightlifting coaches, right? So we good appreciation for CrossFit and welcome CrossFit athletes for coaching and training, and we'll teach you how to snatch, and then you can go do it for 10 minutes or 30 minutes or however long you need to, but.
Yeah, the CrossFitters were the only other group around really who they were next door to the weightlifting group.
Yep.
Who didn't look all Jersey Shore like. Yeah. Now the fencers were all right. The fencers were pretty cool. They had their cool outfits on. But it was nice to see the CrossFitters there too, because they're all humans.
Yeah.
That was kind of crazy. Yeah, so I was going to talk a little bit. I think there's some lessons to be had in the experience of my lifter Brandon.
Sure.
That maybe, if you're a listener and you're going to start competing, you can take away a little bit from. So Brandon has only been training for a year and a half. So the fact that he went to nationals is actually kind of a big deal for him. Because, as Michael and I said, I think it was the last episode, maybe the one before, it can often take people, 3, 4, 5 years to hit the qualifying totals. Brandon is well above the qualifying totals for the 62s. But that's almost a problem, in that his just underlying strength levels that allow him to move the weight he's moving outstrip his experience by quite a bit. He has virtually no experience. Because, of course, you can't gather very much experience in a year and a half.
No.
And this was his first national level meet. The only other time he's ever competed outside of Oregon was when he went to the Las Vegas Open, which was just a local meet.
Sure.
It's a big local meet, and he had to travel to do it, and that's why we did it, so at least he had experience traveling first before he went to nationals. So that's a good thing. But, his experience was basically nothing. Wait. My internet's cutting out. You still got me?
I got you. It says medium.
Oh, okay.
Now I have fast, so.
Okay, now we're fast. All right, I'll come back at this. 1, 2, 3. So, because of his experience being significantly lower than his just basic ability to move a bar, then he suffered from something I think actually is quite common for early lifters, which is to be overly nervous, quite a bit overly nervous, about the level of competition that they're up against and having it negatively affect their lifting. So Brandon, he bombed out on the snatches. He just, a weight, 85 kilos was his opener, and that is a lift that he can make every day in the gym. He literally hits that weight every day in the gym, sometimes power snatches it. But he was unable to snatch it at all when he went out there. all because of mental stuff.
Yeah.
Because he looked around the room and realized, oh my God, it's Daryl Barnes. You know, there's these other lifters around, Sean Hutchinson.
Yeah.
You know, just lifters that are significantly higher caliber than Brandon is right now, because they've been at it for a very long time. And he freaked out, just couldn't do it. And what was interesting is when we came, obviously, after he bombs out on the snatch, he comes back very disappointed, right? And because of his personality, it's kind of interesting. He was more worried that he just let everybody down than anything else. Like he's a very good kid, you know. Like he was like, oh man, I just feel so bad that like the whole team's gonna be like, oh man, Brandon just let me down, that kind of thing. Which of course is not at all how anybody would feel. But he sat down, talked to Sean Hutchinson and a few of the other guys, and very quickly started feeling okay again when he got that feeling that, you know what, that's something that happens to a lot of people.
Everybody.
Yeah, and we can talk about it later, but there's a heck of a lot of bomb outs in this particular nationals. But and that there does have to be, in some sense, I don't want to say a not caring, but an ironic kind of detachment from what you're about to do well, just because of the technical aspects of the sport. And what was funny is that because he had nothing else to lose because he bombed out on the snatch, when he went out, his second clean and jerk was a PR at that body weight that he hit. And so, I mean, he goes from like not being able to even move a weight he can normally power snatch to PRing on the clean and jerk just like 10 minutes later or so, strictly because of a change in attitude, from being totally nervous to not even caring at all. And that to me is something that every lifter is going to face at some point, especially early on, and it's a big lesson that you can take a lot away from if you haven't done a lot of competing yet, especially not in anything technical, a technical type of sport, then you may not have ever faced just what that can do to you. Because it is a different thing lifting that weight in the gym than doing it in front of an audience. There's a performance aspect happening here. And that was pretty interesting.
I think you can also take home from that from the coaching side, you prepared your athlete to perform well at nationals, by evidenced by the PR in the clean and jerk. So whatever you guys did from a prep standpoint in the gym training, produced some valid results. Because sometimes the tendency is, if he had trouble in the snatch, then you start questioning your coaching ability. Well, was he overtrained? Did he not taper enough? Did we not do enough work leading up to the meet? But obviously, you can't always control the mental. And I think there's some things that I think athletes can do going into meets to hopefully improve the mental side of it. And it's important to kind of keep a routine.
Yeah.
So if you have whether it's a local meet in a high school gym or a gym meet or the Arnold in front of 18,000 people, or not in the room but total, if you can kind of keep the same routine in terms of warm ups and attempts and kind of go through the same rituals every time, that's something that may help. I don't know. I think if you can kind of, like you said, kind of have the attitude where it matters. Obviously, it matters a lot, but it's not a life or death situation, especially for a young lifter going into their first nationals. It's an experience. He wasn't going to make. He didn't have a good chance of winning. He wasn't going to make the Olympic team. So the only thing on the line was PRs, right? And he should be approaching PRs as let's get after it, instead of kind of fear of failure, like, oh, I hope I don't miss. I hope I don't miss. I hope I don't miss.
Right, that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, yeah. Yeah,
it's a mindset shift from fear of failure to, trying to achieve success. And I think if you kind of approach it as fear of failure, you're probably going to fail. Approach it as going out for success and going out to hit big weights. That might just improve the overall mindset. But it's a tricky situation trying to deal with the mental side. What did Yogi Berra said something once like, 50% of the sport is 90% mental or something.
Nice.
And I think weightlifting is
I like that kind of math.
Yogi Berra, a great catcher, not a great mathematician.
That'll be on his tombstone there. Yeah. Yeah, that is an interesting thing. With the physical stuff, the tapering down, the kinds of routines going in. With him, he's competed so often at the local level.
Yep.
I really require my lifters to compete all the dang time. That part is pretty dialed in. We know very well where he's going to be able to do well with how he can take. So he lifts on Friday. He hit actually above his openers on both snatch and clean and jerk on Wednesday.
Nice.
That's normal for Brandon.
Yep.
If he doesn't do that, if we hold him back all week and maybe he only gets it on Monday, he won't lift very well. Maybe he's just so young or a super recoverer or something, but he recovers so fast. He starts, it's like he goes up, he's peaking, and then he's down again, and he's not very strong anymore. So I really got to hit him hard, almost right next to the meat. And that's a little unique to him. Most of my lifters, I wouldn't have him do that heavy 2 days out. But I know that about him, and so I know what he needs, and we were able to do that. So I was never really concerned, is he going to be capable of moving that weight? With Brandon, so the trick has always been, well, let's just accept the fact that the snatch is kind of it's a mental lift that he's not quite. When you go into a competition, it's a little harder for him to get the snatches. And so we just open him 15K below his PRs most of the time, which doesn't even give him a shot at hitting them, right? But it's a guaranteed make. Going into nationals, we talked about it actually, and we were like, well, you're hitting this 85 literally every day. So we could put it on, we could open you at 80, and that's an absolute 100% you're going to make it. Or you open at 85, and it's more risky, whatever. Decided to take the chance on the 85 so that he could see if he can get that 90-95. And that would have given him a pretty good shot at maybe 5th, 6th place, put him right there in the middle of the pack. Which he did do on the clean and jerk, actually. He tied for 5th place, actually won on body weight on the clean and jerk. But, I don't want to say that it's almost good that he bombed out, but maybe it is almost good that he bombed out.
It's good that he did it now.
Exactly. His very first time out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he bombs out, gets the experience, goes around, talks to everybody. Well, how'd you do? I bombed out. He talks to John North. He goes to John North, talks to John, says, John says, well, how'd you do, man? And he goes, well, I bombed out on the snatch, but I got a PR on the clean and jerk. He goes, oh, yeah, bomb outs, whatever it happens, And what John said, he goes, well, if you're not bombing out once in a while, you're not trying very hard.
Yeah.
But the other thing he said, the important thing, he said, I once went through a period where I bombed out 4 major competitions in a row. And he said, I was really close to quitting.
Yeah.
But then I realized it just wasn't that big a deal. That's part of the sport.
Yeah.
And that helped turn my brain around. And what was nice is that because Brandon bombed out, he had to go around talking about the fact that he bombed out all weekend to all these people who he looks up to, got the advice from them that he might not have gotten otherwise without that story. It's very personal, and it means a lot to him now. And it's an experience that will drive a lot. Now he knows, okay, I know exactly what has to be fixed.
Yep.
He accepts that. It's very mature in a lot of ways for a 20-year-old, in that he recognizes when something's wrong. And he goes, okay, that has to be fixed. It may take a long time, and he's cool with that. And that's one of the things I think that's going to, keep him going, which is really good. But I would never have wanted to plan for him to bomb out. That would suck, obviously. But in hindsight, it might actually be one of those things that could turn around, and maybe in a year or two, we'll look back and go, you know what? That was one of those turning point experiences for you. Helped you fix one of the things you needed to fix the most.
Sure.
And I think that happens to a lot of people.
I mean, let's look at the alternatives, though. Like, if he would have went, 6 for 6 and PRs in the snatch and clean and jerk, that would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be talking about it. But on the flip side, if he would have went 1 for 3 in the snatch and made his 85 and went on and did okay in the clean and jerk, you guys, and especially Brandon, probably wouldn't change anything. And
right.
whether he doesn't need to do wholesale change, but there's things he probably needs to work on, especially in the snatch. And just by making 85 and then missing 90 or 92 or whatever the other attempts would have been, he may not have been as eager to make those changes. But now, and like you said, the advice he gets from some of the top competitors, it's almost like sink or swim at this point, right? So you bombed, so you sunk, so now you got to start swimming. You don't ever want to be kind of mediocre and just kind of go through it. Like, it'd be great if you would have went 3 for 3, but since that wasn't an option, you miss them all, and now you're starting from scratch. So I think it's going to turn out good for Brandon in the long run. And honestly, everybody bombs out at some point or another. So get it out of the way now when he's trying to compete for 5th place, 4th, 5th place, versus year or two when he's trying to win the whole thing. And
when you really got that shot, then you definitely don't want to be in that situation. So Josh Gilbert of Average Bros, so to move it forward, he was, basically gunning for 2nd place. I mean, the likelihood he was going to beat Daryl Barnes is pretty low, unless Daryl just messed up. Sean Hutchinson did bomb out, so he was out. But he would have won above Josh Gilbert had he hit all his lifts, right? But of course, Josh is a very eager young guy, right? He's like, well, I don't care. I'm going to go all out. I'm going to do this. I think his position's definitely different than Brandon. So with Brandon, the goal is just simply, do what you want to do. Gilbert wanted on the podium.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, no, I can be in at least the top 3. At least. Guaranteed. And see if I can get myself a slot, eventually down the road for like something like Pan Ams or something like that. So that's where I think, you want to be really careful about the idea of opening too high. You got to get at least on the board. You don't want to put yourself not on the board.
Yeah, the guys that win meets are the ones that make their attempts. Like you watch the Worlds or even Pan Ams. It's very few people will ever actually win going 2 for 6. It's guys that go 4 for 6 or 5 for 6 that usually win. So when you're trying to get medals and you're trying to get placing, you have to be a little bit more conservative, I think. But
I think as a rule, I like my lifters to be 4 for 6 or above.
Yeah.
As a rule, definitely give yourself your 3rd attempt as a bit of a long shot.
Yep.
If you got a good day, you'll make it. If you don't have a good day, you won't. But at least try to make sure you're hitting your 2nd attempt. I mean, that should be an attempt you can make. A hard attempt. It ain't gonna be easy. Your 1st attempt's gonna be the one you can make. 2nd attempt, struggle, but you could probably make that. 3rd attempt, that's the one you're gambling with. And I think if you're definitely in your 1st year, so Brandon's never bombed out before. This is the only time he's ever bombed out. And that's by design. Most of the time we go into meets, I will hold him. I don't care what he wants to open with. I'm going to open him low.
Sure.
When we were first starting out, it was low because the bomb out experience in the first, say, 6 months, that could kill a lifter.
Yeah.
That can be it. I go to these local meets sometimes, and that's exactly what you see. You see a young lifter, maybe not young, but they're young in training age.
Sure.
Lifter opening with weights that are basically their PR or right below their PR, and bomb out, and the look on their face. Brandon felt bad and all, but not as bad as these people do, because they have a different. At least Brandon has competed a lot.
Yeah.
He has that underneath him. With these other lifters, if this is their first meet ever and you bomb out, that's bad news.
They have nothing to compare it to. They just know failure. They don't have the success to kind of relate back to.
Yeah. So my advice in general is if you're in your first year or 2 or 3 of competing and you're honestly still just local level, basically lifter, you should probably always be conservative on your openers as much as humanly possible. Always open actually lower than you want to, because your wants are probably a little higher than is realistic.
Well, it's kind of psychology is part of it, but just what we talked about when we opened up about the idea that Brandon was going to weigh in, at what, 4 or 5 a.m. and lift at 7 a.m. Pacific time. I don't know what time Brandon trains during the week, but I'm guessing it's not 7 a.m.
It's not that early.
Yeah, so you have to adjust for that. The travel and getting cross country. You guys are going from Portland to Columbus. That's a long flight. You guys have a layover anywhere or just?
Washington D.C. Weirdly enough.
Oh, so you went way east and then back west, and it's just a long day of travel leading up to the meet. He was probably cutting a little bit of weight. So there's always other factors.
Yep.
And then you put this psychology is just that's the straw that breaks the camel's back sometimes. So you're tired from traveling, you're weighing in and lifting at different times or cutting weight. Oh, yes, you're going to lift in front of 10,000 people who you've never seen before. Now go out and try to PR your first attempt.
That ain't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. So I was gonna think it'd be kind of good to talk maybe a little bit about some of the other, just kind of go over quickly some of the other lifters, some of the highlights of what happened. Like I said, Daryl Barnes won the 62s.
Yep.
Brother won the 56s.
Yep.
And Derek Johnson came in. He was wanting to do 69s. Yeah, their older brother, Derek Johnson, who's also their coach. But he bombed out.
Caleb Williams had a big new American record clean jerk at 69, 166.
Yeah, that was pretty monstrous right there. I mean, you're just thinking about that. You're a 69 kilo lifter, and you're doing darn near 100 kilos over body weight.
Oh yeah. No, he's a strong individual, and now he's kind of dialing it in. I think from a technique standpoint, where he can finally start to use some of that strength he has from years of powerlifting.
Yeah. There was some good lifting. The 94s were definitely an interesting battle. I think John North came in as the favorite, ended up getting third by not much.
Yeah.
It was like a kilo, I think.
Yeah.
Phil Sabatini and Ian Wilson, I think they tied, but
Ian Wilson is a tremendous bright spot in the future of USA Weightlifting, where he's like a 19. He's not even 20 years old, I don't think.
I think he's 19. I think that's right.
Yeah, just good, solid lifter. Makes his attempts. Has a big frame, so he's got plenty of room to grow. He's a thin 94. So I don't know long term whether that means goes up to 105 or super or anything like that. But he's a very talented lifter at 94.
Yeah, that was a heck of a showing by him. I mean, to come in and lift right up there with Sabatini and North.
Yeah, Jared Fleming had a big snatch as well.
Yeah, Fleming. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's just it's a very good weight class. I think there was another one of Rose's lifters, Jared Henderson, didn't quite make weight at 94.
Yeah, he went into 105. There's been a controversy on that one.
Yeah, Wilkes, one of the Wilkes boys there, 94. He bombed out, I believe, with Fleming, but really there were 5 or 6 guys that are just right up.
Just great lifters,
all just north of 145 snatch and all right around a 180 clean and jerk. That's a tough competitive weight class. Whether that means at the American Open, December, next year at Nationals, whatever the case may be, 94 is going to be good for many, many years. Yeah,
I think so. It's true because there's a lot of good lifters and all kind of varying ages.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a while, and not a one of them is really that old.
No, maybe John North's probably maybe the oldest. Phil,
and
I don't know Phil at all, but he might be the same age as John North, but I don't think their training age is that great. I believe they both probably lifted and trained for
5 years.
Sports. Yeah, but I'm not sure either one of them's been competing for more than 5 years or so. So
yeah,
they're still on the upswing as well.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. That's a heck of a weight class. I mean, I think you're right that the 94s will be a huge bright spot for a number of years to come. Yeah, I think so. And the fact that there's that much competition is just going to make them work harder.
Yeah.
That's a great thing.
I think super heavyweights approaching there as well. I know in snatch, Mendez, kind of outpaced everybody by quite a bit, but especially in the clean and jerk, there are quite a few guys who are right there with him in the jerk way. Clean, he can't quite jerk, I think, his best clean, but there's a lot of guys right there. So if their snatches come up, super heavyweight class is going to be competitive for years to come as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting one for sure. Yeah, I think too, once Pat, is able to deal with some of the injuries that have been kind of bugging him for this last year or so, I'm really kind of excited. He's so young.
Yeah.
If he can get over some of those injuries, which he will, it's a matter of time and work. I'm pretty excited by what he's going to do in the next few years.
I'm very. I think we kind of talked about it. Like the women's weight classes are very good. I mean, we actually have 2 Olympians already in women's weightlifting. There were and they were both for super heavyweight. But during the lifting for the women's trials, Amanda Sandoval actually had the #1 spot for some time. Natalie Bergner had. If she would have made her clean and jerk, would have had #1 spot. There's good upcoming lifters in the females, but I really think the future is bright. I think there's good competition in weight classes. The competition is what's going to breed success. I think when you have multiple lifters, pushing each other, and we talked about like the idea that the mean of each weight class is really improving. And that's going to push everybody to the top. Now the key is, and where maybe Weightlifting Academy, as we help grow the sport and we get our 10,000 lifters this year and kind of go from there, there has to be some financial incentive to keep training, right? And I know that I mentioned to you before, like in other countries, the top lifters are rewarded for being a great weightlifter. In the U.S., you have to sacrifice to be a great weightlifter, right? You have to put other stuff on hold, and maybe that means not going to school full time, and maybe it means working a part-time job and you can work full time and make more money. It means putting lots of different life things on hold, so that like I think we have the talent base. It's growing, and we have some competition in weight classes. Now the last little piece of that puzzle is some sort of incentive to keep everybody in the sport currently, and keep them training. And then the financial side may also help really grow the sport even more, which builds a larger base, it creates more competition, and it keeps everybody training. So it's like all these puzzle pieces kind of have to fit together, and when they do, that's when I think we're going to have great international success.
Yeah, I absolutely. That is the thing. I mean, the junior nationals has always been kind of big.
Yeah.
That's always been a heck of a group.
Always.
That's because they're young.
Yeah.
They don't have anything else to do.
but when you get to that 18, 19, 20, that's when other things in life start popping up, whether it's school or work or...
Right. I mean, by the time you're, let's say you're 25, 26 years old, and you got friends who they've finished college.
Yeah.
They got a job that they tried to get into, and they've gone down that path, their career path, and so their life is moving forward in the ways that people kind of traditionally expect them to move forward. And here you are as an athlete thinking, man, maybe I've been going to school part-time or to train enough, or maybe I did finish my degree, but then I didn't go right into the career that I wanted because I couldn't possibly do that and train 20 plus hours a week. And if that is actually your situation, which it is for every one of these lifters, then it gets harder and harder every year to say this is a good idea. I mean, I'll never make money as a weightlifter.
No.
I'll never be able to raise a family as a weightlifter.
On a weightlifter's salary.
On a weightlifter's salary, right. All that gold that's showered upon you. That's a very real concern.
Yeah.
I mean,
Olympic champions aren't made in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. It's going to take 8 years, minimum. I think for somebody to go from, a 16-year-old to a 24-year-old, or a 28-year-old, a 20-year-old to a 28-year-old. It's going to take a solid 8-year period. And during those 8 years, like you said, other things in life start to kind of move along that you have
every year it gets hard.
You have to sacrifice. You have to train. So as long as, like I said, the talent's there, the competition's there, now we just need a little bit of reward on the back end to keep people training. You still have to sacrifice because of the lack of the lack of riches, but if there was a little bit of incentive, that's going to keep those top guys in the 94. That's going to keep all of them around for the next 4 years, and the Olympic trials in 2016 is going to be something special.
Yeah, definitely. That is interesting. I think the competition stuff we're talking about, with the combination of that being an important thing, with the reality that the pipeline's getting better.
Yeah.
So now, let's say in the 85s, Kendra Ferris is not going to last forever as the reigning 85. Obviously, there has to be a new 85 at some point. The good news is the mid-tier 85s, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mid-tier 85s. But then the question, of course, is, well, will all of them stay around? That's the real hope. You have these pretty darn good potential lifters who are early in their training age.
Yeah, all in their early 20s, so they're not too old to achieve success. It's just a matter of can they and will they stick around to realize that success.
Yeah, that's a big concern. I think it's one of those things that the methods people have tried in the past to fund weightlifters, not just weightlifting, but weightlifters themselves. A good chunk of them clearly have not worked. There are a few, though, now that are working. I mean, the Cal Strength system, Glen Pinlay Cal Strength is, they figured out a system over there to at least be able to fund a handful of top lifters who can train professionally as athletes. So that's one bright spot there that's really good. There's a few college programs that, at least for the period of time you're in the college, at least then you can get your stuff paid for. So obviously LSU, Shreveport, Linwood, there's a few others. Michigan. So at least there's something there going on. But of course, this is it's a problem if it's just a team that does it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's great that there are going to be teams that are figuring this out. I'm actually trying to figure the same thing out on my end so that I can do a similar kind of thing. But what would be better than just a team being able to support one or two lifters is having some kind of overarching system that says, well, you don't have to move to this team.
Sure.
You don't have to leave the coach that you got you to where you are, that you are so comfortable with. Like for instance, Sarah Bertram, who she's sort of like Natalie Bergener, that she's kind of maybe near the end of the training age. She's been doing about 10 years and fantastic lifter, definitely one of the better lifters in the country, but odds are not going to necessarily go significantly higher than she's already gone. But at one point or another, I believe she was, offered a spot at the U.S. Training Center in Colorado Springs, which would have given her the opportunity to live in like a weightlifter.
Sure.
Didn't take that. In part, I don't know this for sure because I didn't grill her about it or anything, but I would most certainly imagine that there are lots of just personal life reasons why you wouldn't want to up and move to Colorado Springs necessarily.
Yep.
She's very, very close to her coach. Her coach has done her very good, done a good job with her, and didn't want to change that system. It works. And I think that's pretty reasonable. I think it would be much better if we had some kind of other system where we said, well, you stay exactly where you are, and we're just going to give you a stipend.
Yeah. And they do have something like that in place, but it's not enough to.
Right. The number of athletes that are even eligible.
Yeah.
And the amount that it is. I mean, it's not a bad amount for the top 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Whatever, if you're naming Kendrick Ferris.
Yeah.
Then that's good, but.
We need number 24. Number 24,
yes.
Who is only been training for a year and a half, who is 20, 21 years old, who's looking to, who has to make a real tough decision in the next year or two. Well,
yeah.
I've only been doing this for a year. Should I stick with it because I'm achieving some success? But do I have? What is the benefit of me putting everything else on hold for the next 4 years to train for the Olympic trials? And that's who needs some help as well. So the top 3, top 4 get a little bit. It'd be great if that stretched down to 12, but I think we really need top 25. There needs to be some benefit there for all those guys and girls.
Yeah, I guess I get the idea being we want to support the pipeline, not just the people who are already there.
Exactly.
Yeah, keep the pipe. It's not there. I've been reading this book by the CEO of Zappos.
Okay. Yep.
It's basically like a memoir of his experience building that company, which is it's a company that they kind of. The whole reason the company was successful really at all was their customer service stuff, and that's kind of interesting and all in and of itself because they would sell items that Amazon would sell cheaper, but they'd still outsell Amazon on these items simply because of their customer service, things like that. But one of the things that I really liked that he mentioned was that it's common among, say, business organizations or organizations in general to say people are your best asset. But he said that's not true because people come and go. It's your pipeline that's your asset. You need to have a pipeline structured in such a way that no matter who comes and goes, there's always another person who's able to take that slot. And the system itself is what enables people to move up and move up and move up. But it's the system, not the individual person who may or may not be in the system, that is the thing. And so something is good about the pipeline right now in that we're getting the numbers in more than we used to, and that's going to probably increase. I would certainly think so. And the caliber of athlete is certainly improved on that second tier. No doubt about it. I guess the next step really is trying to figure out what are the different ways in which, as a sport, we can support those people in that stage of their career so that they don't leave. That's the thing, right? You don't want to go. You don't want Pat Mendez to one day wake up and go, man, this is ridiculous. I need a job.
I can go get a job working anywhere full time and make more money doing that than I can being a top level weightlifter. Being top, top 5, top 10 weightlifters in the country. You can make more money being the guy that checks your receipts at Costco. Walking out the door like that guy makes more money than Pat Mendez probably. And that's not right. Or any of the top 10 guys. Like there should be.
Right.
It's not going to be $1 million, and it just the sport isn't that type of sport. There's not Coca-Cola and Pepsi and the big money sponsors, Bud Light, aren't getting on board. That's all right. So it's never going to be $1 million, but why can't it be $100,000? Why can't the top guys make 100 and the next tier guys, somewhere in the 50s, and then there's people in the top 25, top 50, 15,000, 24,000, 30,000, like a graded scale. As you get better, the more money you get. But it doesn't seem very unrealistic,
Yeah.
It's going to take time, but it doesn't seem that unrealistic.
So talking about we're talking about what the problem is, what possible solutions are. I guess the third thing always is, well, what will be the ways in which we can implement or make possible those solutions? I guess there's a lot of ideas, but one of them, of course, is always the talk about sponsorships and things like that. What types of sponsorships? And to me, that's a great idea, except it needs to be you need to be very specific about the types of groups that you're getting your sponsorships through, that they're the kinds of companies that are going to really support weightlifting.
Yep.
And I think that they also need to be, well, I guess that's, I mean, that, to me, that's kind of fundamentally it. They need to, in some sense, love weightlifting in such a way that they're going to stick through the hard growth period that we're about to go through.
Yep.
You know, weightlifting is starting kind of low. It has the potential to grow like any good organization with, you know, genuine talent and all of that has. But there's going to be a lot of stormy periods, right? And that needs to be weathered and not have, you can't go through this thing where lifters have money and then they have nothing. And then they have money and they have nothing. That's really just as bad as never having money in the first place.
Yep.
There needs to be some of that going on. And one of the things that bothers me is that a certain amount of a lot of what we do is we rely on the fact that USA Weightlifting is a member of the USOC, and then some of the money coming in from that, and as though that's where the money's going to come from.
Yep.
So we have it's sort of like this huge top-down thing, right, where you've got like the big sponsorships like Nike or, you know, even just NBC,
Yeah.
right? And then we just kind of get the trickle-down stuff
Yep.
down in weightlifting. That's obviously a really bad model for a sport that is just not a big sport.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I was given a press pass to the Arnold because of, you know, the stuff we're doing here and all that. I got with the press pass these sheets that I had to sign that NBC forced everybody in the press to sign that said you will not video anything going on with the Olympic trials.
Yep.
So, you know, can't do that. And, you know, all kinds of other things. There's not a lot of broadcast in any way whatsoever what's going on with the Olympic trials. Now imagine that for a second. Is NBC really going to put any of weightlifting on television? Or these Olympic trials? Are they going to get anything more than like a blurb for a second? That's, of course, silly, right? And we all know that. But it's because they're really focused on just the general Olympic sports.
Protecting the brand.
Protecting the brand of all of that kind of stuff. And weightlifting just kind of gets shoved under the rug.
Yeah.
But and so we get the worst of both worlds. Like, we don't get to have the benefits of being completely autonomous, where you can do whatever you want, right? We can just put everything on YouTube,
Yep.
Which would be the best thing for us. Or we don't get the benefits of the other side, where the bigger corporations, they run the show, but you get their broadcasting network. And so that's worth it. So if you're sprinting or you're women's gymnastics, hey, that's a great deal.
Sure.
You know, forget YouTube. We're going to be on NBC.
Yeah.
You know, that's all right. Weightlifting doesn't have that. Weightlifting needs YouTube. One of the best things in the world that ever happened to weightlifting is the fact that YouTube was created.
Oh, sure.
You know, Pat Mendez is, you know, one of the most famous weightlifters in the country because of really one YouTube video. You know, he's kind of like the Justin Bieber of weightlifting. You know, he gets up there, he does some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody flips out, and you have that nice viral effect that can happen when something really is cool and something everybody wants to see on YouTube.
Yeah.
That kind of underground grassroots marketing stuff is absolutely essential for the growth of weightlifting. And I would rather see us be partnering with companies that are maybe a little smaller.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have the budgets, but they are just dyed-in-the-wool companies. You know, so, you know, I've like my friends at like Risto Sports, for instance, like Gwen Sisto and Ivan Rojas. They're friends of mine, and they're really cool people. They're a smaller company and they're a growing company, but I think that's kind of that's the type of group. Maybe Rogue, you know, and some of these others, Muscle Driver.
Yep.
These are the kinds of companies that they live and breathe the same stuff we live and breathe.
And our success as a sport is going to help their success as a company, and vice versa.
And vice versa, right. Being, you know, really just linked up with companies like that are not already maybe the major companies,
Yep.
but they have a vested interest
Exactly.
in making this sport big.
Yep.
That is the kind of stuff we need more of. And I wonder, you know, so one thing that happened at the right before the Olympic trials, Nike kicked out everybody who had a booth in the main area of weightlifting So this included Dartfish, the company that does the interesting videos. They kicked out the Risto guys. They even kicked out Eleiko.
Yeah.
Imagine that. I mean, Eleiko, they were actually giving people bars for winning their weight class. I mean, that's a pretty serious gift.
Yeah.
It was a $2,000 bar. But because Nike has this deal with the broader Olympic Committee,
sure,
they want their branding to be the only branding that's a part of the actual Olympic trials.
Wow.
So everybody gets booted. And it was like the last second, literally like 10, 15 minutes before. I felt really bad for Mark Cannell, who's like one of the main organizers here.
Yeah.
Poor guys, what a horrible spot this guy gets put in. The people that actually help the sport that he has relationships with, he's got to kick them out for an organization that's really not doing anything for our sport.
Yeah.
Make
some shoes, but they're going to make the official Olympic warm-ups this year, I believe. So they are, it's much more about the Olympic brand and the rings than it is about the sport of weightlifting, and that's the problem.
Yeah, that's not cool. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I don't know how one goes about fixing that problem exactly, but I think it has to be fixed.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a way around it. There's no way we're going to be able to. We need more autonomy. The sport of weightlifting needs to be able to control its own destiny, and if we're at the behest of these higher ups, they really don't care about weightlifting.
Yeah.
They care about the Olympics, but they don't care about us.
Yep.
That's not going to help us. That's going to just hurt us over the long haul. And somehow or another, we've got to break free of that. And I don't know what kind of bureaucracy has to be gotten through to make that happen, or what, because I'm not a part of that. But I don't see how we can possibly get to where we want to go without the ability to control our own sponsorship opportunities and things like that.
Yeah,
almost
and
completely.
all the other stuff. No, I think you're 100% right. That is, it helps us in the short term to have that, but is it going to ultimately hurt our long-term growth? Almost like it hamstrings us a little bit in the sense that we're only going to get as big as they let us, but we can only bring in as many sponsors as the big sponsors let us. But at the same time, the big sponsors really aren't after weightlifting. They're after the Olympic recognition that goes along with weightlifting. Yeah, it's a tough situation.
Yeah, that's a real interesting one.
I think this is a really good topic that can really help maybe get some discussion going on the Facebook page or on the actual Weightlifting Academy site. And
absolutely,
you bring up some really good points. That's going to be interesting as the sport grows. Maybe the bigger companies will step up and have an appreciation because they see we're a growing market.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they haven't done much really ever. It's the smaller people have always been our biggest allies. And if we lose them, that's going to hurt us long term.
And the way I see it, too, is, at one point or another, in the early days, Nike was a small company.
Yeah.
Your
backyard.
It's almost better for us to get in there on the ground floor with these other companies they're not huge, monstrous companies yet. Some of them may someday be bigger companies than they are, expand into different markets and all kinds of other things. It's always true that, one or two in a certain, market there of companies is going to explode up, and if they're already just completely invested in the sport of weightlifting, that's probably not going to go away. Right. I mean, they're probably going to continue with that, and that's going to be part of the center of their brand. Is this, we've grown, they've grown, we've grown together, and that can do us an enormous amount of good to really get in there, on the ground floor, really, with these companies that do have potential to really, really go far, especially, because it's not just us. I mean, there's CrossFit. That's an enormous market. And it's not just, all kinds of things are going to grow out of that, right? There's things we can't even envision right now that are going to pop up just out of CrossFit. This whole movement of just, kettlebells, whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that's, we just under the umbrella of for real training, stuff that's actually hard and good for you. those, there's a handful of companies out there right now that are growing rather with this movement. We're a part of that movement. It would be horrible to have a situation where, because we're also, unlike CrossFit, linked up with the USOC, that we basically get yanked out of that crowd, because that's our crowd. We are much more with CrossFitters than we are with women's gymnastics. In terms of how we need to market ourselves and how we need to grow our sport and all of that kind of stuff. We're so much more like them than we are like the big sports that already have all of that great stuff going.
We have 50 or 60 years of history to look back on and say, we've always been small, and we've been linked up to gymnastics or track and field or whatever else. But for us to grow, we have to kind of change what we've done in the past. And I think you're right on in that aspect.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I think that, future episodes will probably have a lot. There's so many different possibilities for what can be done. I think it would be interesting to get, the perspective of the audience. I would love to hear any interesting ideas. I know a lot of people in the audience are, in fact, they run different kinds of businesses and totally different markets, who knows, real estate, whatever it is. But what's cool about that, I always like hearing from people who have a background in some other industry, what's working for them, how they grew what they do, and wondering, well, maybe we can apply some of those lessons over here. So, if you're listening to this and you're in an industry of any kind, and you've seen that kind of thing happen, the kind of growth of a small thing into something that's much bigger, what worked there, what could maybe work here, that'd be really interesting to hear about. So definitely check out facebook.com/weightlifting academy. That's in the main area we're going to start getting our discussions on over there. We'd really like to get into that, because that's a huge thing. We all love weightlifting, but we need to make sure that it continues to grow, because without the growth, obviously at some point or another, it could just implode on itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's important. It's important stuff.
Yeah, good stuff, Nick.
All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps it up.
Sure. Glad you guys had a good trip. Hopefully it was a good learning experience for Brandon, and only build from here.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, one of the couple days in there, Brandon, Josh from Average Bros there, and John North all took over a platform. They were all lifting together, and John hit a 165 snatch on the platform while the other guys were clean and jerking. And that was definitely a fun experience for Brandon, to sit there and be on the same platform with John North. That was pretty cool. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. I'm sure over the next few weeks of these episodes, I'll just keep bringing up stuff that's happening. But yeah, there's a lot of good information in this last one. I think that again, I'd love to hear people in the audience feedback on all this different kind of stuff. Again, facebook.com/weightlifting academy, and also sign up for our newsletter list, weightliftingacademy.com.